So today marks the release of the CM Storm Enforcer. So this is a new case from Cooler Master. It is a value-oriented option, so it is a sub $100 case. And as you may or may not be able to tell right off the bat, the front of it is stylized kind of like the helmet of a knight. So that's why they've got this knight guy next to it, although it seems to be some kind of like futuristic knight because he seems to have technology on him and glowing lights and whatnot, rather than just armor. So here is a picture of the case. Here is a picture of, well, more detailed pictures of the case. So we're not going to worry too much about those right now since we are going to be opening up the box. Here we have specifications. So it's all black. That means including the interior. It does have a black interior. Here's the dimensions, here's the weight. It takes ATX motherboard, so it does have 7 PCI expansion slots, plus 1 auxiliary one that you can use for fan controllers or anything like that. It's made of steel, plastic, and mesh. It has 4 exposed 5¼ inch bays, 1 external 3½ inch, as well as 6 internal 3½ inch. It has 4 2½ inch bays, so I'll show you how those work once we get inside. USB 3, this is huge. USB 3 with an internal header, so that means that all those new P67 boards that use internal headers instead of goofy like pass-throughs to the back of the board, this will support it. So that is a huge selling feature right there. A couple USB 2. Comes with a front 200mm fan, a rear 120mm fan, and it's got a couple optional fans, a 200 in the top and a 120 on the side over your graphics card. So here we are. It accepts video cards up to 390mm with the hard drive cage removed. Well, you only have to remove one of them. So 390mm is what, about 15 inches, 16 inches, something like that. So I wouldn't worry too much about running into any graphics card for the time being that will not fit in this case, because even the Radeon 6990 and the, what is it? 5970, 6990, 5970, yeah. Even those video cards will fit in here without any issues, and they're both about 12 inches long and they're the longest ones on the market. So it comes with an operator's manual. Next we will find, flipping it over and removing it from the box. This is the unboxing portion of our video. There we are. Alright, so we find packing material. 2 matched pieces made of a stiff foam, so while it's probably not the best packing material in the world, you prefer the soft closed cell foam, it is thick enough and this case is light enough that I really wouldn't worry about any damage in transit to the CM Storm Enforcer. I'm just going to go ahead and take off the other piece. There we are. And then remove the plastic so we can see the case itself now. So let's just do a little tour of the exterior of the chassis. There we go. All right, so first thing we see is the front. As I mentioned before, it has kind of a knight-looking appearance to it. So this is sort of overlapping armor plates, and then right here we have a grill where presumably the knight would be able to speak to others, you know, battle cries and whatnot, all that good stuff. You can clearly see through the front the 200mm intake fan, so that has a red LED on it, so it should look quite imposing from the front. On this side, actually, you know what, let's finish up at the front first before I get ahead of myself. So this is held closed by magnets, and you can see here your 4 5¼ inch bays with 1 optional 3½ inch external if you got a card reader or something else like that that goes in a 3½ inch external bay. Your reset switch is, and I actually really like this, right next to your power switch, but safe from you accidentally hitting it whenever you have the front door closed. And given how rarely you need to use an optical drive these days, this will pretty much always be closed so you won't accidentally hit your reset switch. You got your power LED here, your hard drive activity LED here, microphone and headphone ports, 2 USB 2.0 ports, and 2 USB 3.0 ports, and I'll show you guys that internal header in a minute. You've got a convenient drink tray, document tray, CD tray, whatever kind of things you happen to need to put there. Maybe you want to store your manual there. Maybe you want to put your keys there. No problem. Storage area on the top of the case. I actually really like that. Then you've got another 200 millimeter fan mount, but it'll also mount other stuff. So by the look of things, you can throw another two 120 mils there, but it does not support a radiator due to clearance issues inside. So you'd be looking at just two fans, okay, in the top. However, it does support a 120 millimeter rad in the back. So since we're going around talking about the back, why don't we have a look at the back? So here's your 120 mil fan in the back. That's included. It does support a rad. It has enough clearance around the bottom and around the top for that. You got water cooling grommets if you wanted to do an external radiator setup. Okay, some people do those. And you've got your standard backplate, IO backplate, shield, cover, missing thing. Well, it's not missing, but you put it in when you get it with your motherboard. Then you have the 7 PCI slots plus the one auxiliary one I mentioned. So for example, some coolers come with a little speed adjustment dial for the fan. You'd put that there rather than using up one of your valuable PCI slots. Supports standard ATX power supplies, and you can see it has all 8 mounting holes, so you can mount your power supply either with the fan down or with the fan on top, depending on whatever you prefer. You're not locked down to one way like I've seen with some cases in the past. So give me a sec to take these screws off and then we'll be back. Now, I've been saying this for a long time, but what is the point of a black interior if you don't have a side panel window to show it off? So, well, I mean, it's not a complaint about this case, obviously, because it has a side panel window. So I've taken off the covers that come to protect it during shipping. It has also some more of the overlapping armor effect built into the side panel. You can see the window is quite clean, so it is attached via grommets here around the outside, and it is it's actually flush with the steel of the side panel. So you just slide that off, pretty much the standard way to remove any case side panel from any case pretty much ever, other than the ones that try and get creative about it. And inside we will find, oh, you know what, I'm actually gonna remove this side panel as well so that I can show you guys the whole interior of this chassis. Accessories box. Why don't we do this first for a change? I always do this at the end and frequently end up forgetting it entirely, so we're just gonna get this out of the way here. So in here we find drive rails. All right, so these are for mounting your 3.5-inch drives in the toolless cages here. So you just push those into the sides of the drives, either side, click in, and there you go. Cooler Master actually does a great job of their hard drive mounting mechanisms. I'm a big fan because they're secure, easy to use, and I mean, is there really anything else you can ask for when it comes to mounting a hard drive? Okay, we've got some black zip ties. We have a, motherboard speaker, so that'll beep if you're having problems with your system or whatever else the case may be, since it's not built into the case. And since a lot of people don't want them anyway, that's just fine. We've got screws here as well, so there's your motherboard screws, any other screws you might need, as well as a way to lock the side panel should you so desire. So you can, this functionality is not built in, but you can throw that on there and then all of a sudden you can put a padlock on the side panel if you want, if you're going to LANs or whatever else, and you want to protect your valuable hardware. Now this feature is another one that, as far as I can tell, and this is a bit of a guess, but it's called Storm Guard. It is for safeguarding your gaming peripherals, and from what I can see, it looks like what you do is if you're going to a LAN or you're using it in a public place, you put this in the, throw it at the case and then break everything. You put this in the auxiliary PCI slot here. You run your cable inside, pass it through this hook, and then run it back outside and plug it into the back of your I/O panel. So what that means is that and then once you put a padlock on the side panel, without removing your side panel and removing this, no one can take your peripherals away because the cable is routed through the inside of your case so that they can't steal it, pretty much. Okay, so there's that. We also have this, whatever it is. It's like Christmas. Just opening things up and not knowing what they are. Oh, that just looks like a drive adapter. Okay. So that's probably the 5.25 to 3.5-inch drive adapter there. And finally, we have, is this dual? Oh, how does that work? Neat. Okay, we have a 3.5-inch to 2.5-inch drive bay adapter as well. All right, finally, the case itself. So why don't we start with, let's start at the front. So here's our 6 hard drive bays. How's that the front? What's the cameraman even looking at? Oh, designed by Cooler Master. Yes, he's looking at the stamp here that says designed by Cooler Master. That's very good, cameraman. Okay, why don't we start at the top front? So we've got 4 5¼ inch bays. These are all using toolless mechanisms. Although, should you so desire, if you want to just back up a sec there. Should you so desire, you can also put screws into your drives from the other side. So that way you have the convenience of tool-free with the security of putting in a screw should you need to ship the system or do anything like that. Moving down, you have a removable 3.5 inch drive cage, so that supports 4 drives. You can remove the whole thing. And then under that you have a fixed one, so you can see this one uses rivets, 2 by 3.5 inch drive cage. You have another removable drive cage. This one is for 2.5 inch drives right here, so that one supports 2. You just take out a couple screws here, slide it out, install your drives, and put it back in. Conveniently lined up with the cable management holes here, so you can deliver the power and SATA cables up to wherever it is that they need to go from those drives. Okay, moving down, we've got 4 rubber mounts here for your power supply. In a case like this, I would probably recommend using the fan facing down, because you can see here you've got a filtered, appears to be removable, although it might be a bit challenging. You've got a filtered intake for your 120mm fan on the bottom of your power supply. That way it keeps the cooling zone separate from the rest of your case, rather than sucking up hot air that is being exhausted by your graphics card. Okay, the PCI slots we've pretty much covered. The 120mm fan in the back we've pretty much talked about. You've got a CPU cutout, so that means that if you want to mount a CPU cooler that uses a backplate, you do not need to remove the motherboard to mount it. You can just take off your back side panel and mount it that way. Up here you can see what I was talking about, because the top of your motherboard is going to be right here. So by the time you install a radiator and a fan, you're not going to have enough clearance. So that is fans strictly up here in the top. All right, micro ATX. Okay, let's have a look at what we've got for included front panel connectors, even though we've pretty much already talked about them when we looked at the front panel itself. Here we are. So there are your front switches and LEDs, all that good stuff, color-coded. Next, we have our front HD audio. Nice long cable for that, so you'll be able to reach, depending what motherboard manufacturer you're using, got like a goofy one right here, for example, you'll be able to reach it just fine. You got your USB 2.0, nice black cables. And then finally, here we are, USB 3.0. So that is your USB 3.0 internal header. Lots of motherboards have them here or here, so you'll be able to reach that regardless. And I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to say about the Enforcer. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos.